this autumn. This comes at a time of rising global tension, of wars, of escalation of wars, of two conflicts where nuclear use is possible, both in the Ukraine war and in the Middle East, where Israel has nuclear weapons. So we're in a very, very dangerous situation, and it's our view, and in fact the view of the majority of the British population who oppose nuclear weapons, US nuclear weapons coming back to Britain. It is our view that we don't want these nuclear weapons, that they put us at greater danger. They put Britain on the front line, the nuclear front line, in any future US wars, and of course they make us a target. So for all these reasons and many more which you will know about and we're going to hear about from our excellent speakers today, that's why we are saying no to these nuclear weapons. So can I hand over now to, maybe you'd like to hand me your dog, Carol, to Carol Turner, who is co-chair of London Region CND, to introduce our first speaker.
Thanks, Kate. And Moxie is not our first speaker. She simply wants a little bit of attention. It's great. Before I hand you over to Anne from Bromley, I just want to give a call out to all the London groups and individuals who are here today. We've got people from Haringey, from Forest Hill. We've got Japanese Against Nuclear. Welcome, Anne and Shigeo. We have Lewisham CND, Lewisham Stop the War. And we've got and I can see Wimbledon crouching in the background there. And we've got lots of other people. I'll mention them as we go along. And we've got a fantastic array of banners. We'll take some photographs of that later. And welcome to Strawberry Thieves. Look at that lovely banner over there. They're going to be singing for us towards the end of the programme. So, Anne, are you ready? Now, Anne is opening our proceedings in a very special way. She's written a poem for us for today about US nukes coming to Britain. So it's a real hot reminder of why we're all here. Thank you, Anne.
So I'm very pleased to be here and bring greetings from Bromley Borough CND. And I wrote this poem with the title of today's demonstration, Don't Put Britain on the Nuclear Front Line. US nukes at Lakenheath make us vulnerable to a nuclear attack. NATO expansion draws us nearer to nuclear Armageddon's night most black. Nations seem oblivious of possible annihilation as they are addicted to arms sales proliferation. Arms dealers inexcusably irresponsible in their profit-driven world ensure nearer the inevitable road of destruction we are hurled. Trident renewal is high on the government agenda, ignoring campaigners' cries to de-escalate and surrender. Drones and missiles are being indiscriminately fired as conflicts increase. There is now a danger of greater tension with little hope of peace. Britain is irrevocably on the nuclear front line. Millions of peace drugs need releasing before we run out of precious time.
Thanks so much, Anne. That's absolutely brilliant and a really clear message. So in introducing our next speaker, I would like to thank the Green Party for its support for our campaign against weapons coming back to Lakenheath and for their excellent anti-nuclear weapons work over many years. So it's a great pleasure now to welcome Zach Polansky to address the crowd. He's Green Party Deputy Leader and a London Assembly member. Welcome, Zach.
Thank you very much, and thank you Moxie over there for giving me a warm welcome. I'm Deputy Leader of the Green Party of England and Wales, and I'm also a London Assembly member, and I was elected just yesterday to be the Chair of London's Environment Committee. Now, the environment is intersectional. There's no environmental justice without racial, social and economic justice too. And it's always really important that those of us in the wider green and environmental movement always connect what's happened with colonialism and empire with exploitation for oil and gas. And nuclear weapons is exactly part of that same story. It's for weaponization of our communities. It's for militarization of our humanity, which is always putting profit as the bottom line, rather than humanity and compassion. And we've stood here right outside the US Embassy. And this proposal, which is blatantly looking like they are planning for it to happen, to store weapons in Lakenheath, not a single person in this country voted for Joe Biden to have weapons on our soil. I don't trust Joe Biden, and sadly in the near future, we sure as hell don't trust Donald Trump. It is vitally important that we speak out about this, that people know what's going on. So when I think about this bleak world and the despair that's going on right now, I also think about what gives me hope. And what gives me hope is you guys being stood here right now. You could be doing anything else with your weekend, but you know this is important. And know for every single one of you who is stood here right now in our groups and in our communities, there are lots of people who agree with us. In fact, I think it's nearly 60% of people, when polled, didn't want these weapons. We need to keep those voices clear, and we need to keep them amplified. Now, this project in Lakenheath will not only be environmentally destructive for the local community, it is also disastrous for the global community. All it does is push fear and insecurity. It amplifies those narratives. And in fact, it was a senior official of NATO who said that this needed to happen because of the escalating crisis with Russia and Ukraine. That's exactly why this shouldn't be happening. As things are becoming more insecure, the voices of peace, community and compassion, the voices of humanity need to get louder, not the voices of warmongers. It was Shakespeare in Julius Caesar who said, "Beware of the leaders who bang the wars of drum to whip the citizenry into patriotic fever." That's exactly what is happening here. And we must be clear that we have the confidence, the compassion, the energy, the organisation to speak out against it. So keep speaking in your communities. Know that people are on our side, peace and justice are on our side, and together we will win. This has happened before. In the 1950s, we saw that there was nearly a disaster. In fact, it was described as East England nearly became a desert. We know the women on Greenham Common, the fact that these weapons have been sent before means we have won before, and we will win again. So solidarity, our cause is just, our cause is peace, and our cause will win. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks very much indeed, Zach. And you mentioned there Greenham Common and the Women's Peace Camp there. If anyone doesn't already know, there is going to be a peace camp at Lakenheath for 2 weeks in July. So, and many of the participants there who are leading that initiative are women from Greenham and also from Aldermaston Women's Peace Camp. So they're seizing the moment, and I hope that many of you will go and visit them or join them if you're able to do that. That is in July. So it's a great pleasure to welcome our next speaker. She was a celebrated war reporter, a great writer, and a really great activist and campaigner too on so many issues, whether it's support for the Palestinian cause or working to close down Guantanamo. Please welcome Victoria Britton.
Thank you very much, Kate, for those generous words. And thanks to everybody for coming. I completely echo the words of the last speaker. It's so great to be here and to feel that we are all in this fight for humanity, actually, together. So I'm going to read you a poem which was written by June Jordan, born in Harlem in 1939. And she wrote this poem in 1982, the year of Sabra and Shatila and the siege of Beirut. The poem is dedicated to the 600,000 Palestinian men, women and children who lived in Lebanon from 1948 to 1983. I didn't know, and nobody told me, and what could I do or say anyway? They said, you shot the London ambassador, and when that wasn't true, they said, so what? They said, you shelled their northern villages, and when the UN forces reported, that was not true because your side of the ceasefire was holding since more than a year before. They said, so what? They said they wanted simply to carve a 25-mile buffer zone, and then they ravaged your water supplies, your electricity, your hospitals, your schools, your highways and byways, all the way north to Beirut, because they said this was their quest for peace. They blew up your homes and demolished the grocery stores and blocked the Red Cross and took away doctors to jail, and they cluster bombed girls and boys whose bodies swelled purple and black into twice the original size. And they said this was brilliant military accomplishment. And this was done, they said, in the name of self-defense. They said, that is the noblest concept of mankind. Isn't that obvious? They said something about never again. And then they made close to 1 million human beings homeless in less than 3 weeks. And they killed or maimed 40,000 of your men and your women and your children. But I didn't know, and nobody told me. And what could I do or say anyway? They said they were victims. They said you were Arabs. They called your apartments and gardens guerrilla strongholds. They called the screaming devastation that they created the rubble. Then they told you to leave, didn't they? Didn't you read the leaflets that they dropped from their hotshot fighter jets? They told you to go. 135,000 Palestinians in Beirut. And why didn't you take the hint? Go. There was the Mediterranean. You could walk into the water and stay there. What was the problem? I didn't know, and nobody told me. And what could I do or say anyway? Yes, I did know it was the money I earned as a poet that paid for the bombs and the planes and the tanks that they used to massacre your family. I'm not an evil person. The people of my country aren't so bad. You can expect but so much from those of us who have to pay taxes and watch American TV. You see my point. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Victoria. What a fantastic reminder that those of us who are on the streets marching for Gaza nowadays are not the first to object to America's interventions abroad and provision of arms to regimes who use them against international law. I just want a quick name check of some groups that have arrived, particularly Crawley. Hi guys, lovely to see you. And Kingston, who actually arrived earlier and weren't on the first call-out list and will never forgive me if the name isn't mentioned. Welcome, Kingston. Welcome, John from Camden. Welcome, Rick. We haven't seen you for a while. It's lovely to have you back. Welcome, Strawberry Fields. Welcome, people from Greenwich. We've got an announcement. I don't know what that is.
Sorry, we've just had an abandoned bag drawn to our attention. And I just need to make an announcement to see if it belongs to anyone. Yes, okay. Thank you very much. Reunited, sorry, Carol.
Okay. No detonations at this demonstration. I'm very pleased to introduce the next speaker. She's incredibly well known across London. She was the first Labour MP for Kensington, which is a real achievement for those of you who know the makeup of Kensington. And she is best known perhaps for her work on Greenwich. But if you didn't know, and I'm sure lots of our audience here do know, Emma has been a former Vice Chair of Parliamentary CND and remains a very fervent campaigner against nuclear weapons and against war. Emma Dent-Code, welcome.
Brothers and sisters, and all others, I must confess, recently I felt helpless. I felt helpless in the face of the onslaught of the horrific news from Gaza, from Sudan, from Ukraine, and from around the world. What difference can we make? How can we stop the daily mass murder of civilian men, women, and children? How can we persuade those lying, self-obsessed, hard-hearted, venal politicians to listen, to change their position, to show empathy and love for their fellow human beings, fleeing in desperation across the sea in leaky boats, travelling from one country to another in search of safety and peace for themselves and for their families? We are in a very frightening place, and the world is facing existential threats from climate change and from war. And yet here, right here in the UK, and right now, the United States and United Kingdom governments are planning to move nuclear weapons to our land to act not as a deterrent, but as a nuclear launch pad for the United States nuclear bombs, inviting any nuclear state to view the UK with a massive target on our backs. My friends, we cannot allow this to happen. Across the globe, people, young and old, of all religions and none, of all ethnicities, are rising up against the Israeli genocide of Palestinian people. This move to site nuclear weapons on our territory is the end game, quite literally. The potential consequence of the rapidly accelerating war in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. This could be our obliteration too. We must stop this. If you pray, pray. If you can, give money. If you can walk, march. Support the encampments, support all the protesters and the marchers and the boycotters and the divestors and the sanctioners. Remember that this works. It's worked before and it can work again. I'm giving myself a talking to here because I found it really hard. We are not powerless. We are part of a global movement for peace. And that includes no US nukes on British soil. Let's not make ourselves targets, but agents of peace. Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed, Emma. So glad you could join us today. Right, now we've got a great little opportunity for some audience participation. So I'm going to welcome Rick to the fore with his guitar. That's a clue, so hope you've all come ready to sing. Rick. So Rick's going to lead us in a couple of songs. Over to you.
I will need a microphone person to hold the microphone.
Right.
You can talk Norwich Quakers. Oh, I'm going to say that.
He's from Norwich Quakers.
Dimitri's sound system.
Okay, thank you, Dimitri, for the loan of your sound system. By the way, those of you who enjoyed the beautiful music at the start, the violin music, that was Dimitri. So, big thank you to Dimitri. Thank you.
And I've got my friend Viv from South London on tambourine, but I've lost her now.
Viv, yeah, Viv on tambourine. Yeah, welcome, Viv.
Wow, okay. Shall we go into this hard or soft?
Hard.
Hard. Okay, you have to go, what? And then, what is it good for? And I go, absolutely, and you go, nothing. Say it again, okay, right? I'll give you a couple to get going. What? Whoa, what is it good for?
Absolutely
nothing.
Say it again.
What is it good for? Absolutely
Nothing.
well, war I despise, cause it means the destruction of innocent lives. War means tears from mothers' eyes, and their young men, they go out to fight. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again, yeah. Oh God, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. War is a heartbreaker. Only friends with the Undertaker. War is the enemy of all humankind. The thought of war, it blows my mind. War spreads us from the young today. Induction, then destruction. There's got to be a better way. What is it good for?
Absolutely nothing. Sing it again. Good God, yo.
What is it good for? Absolutely
Nothing.
That's better. War shattered many persons' lives, left them bitter, mean, and disabled. War can't bring life, it can only take it away. There's got to be something better we can find to do today. I said, what is it good for? Absolutely
Nothing.
Say it again. Now you gotta say the war bit, right? So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, war. 1, 2, 3, 4, war. What is it good for? Absolutely
Nothing.
3, 4, war. What is it good for? Absolutely
Nothing.
war I despise. War, it's a heartbreaker. It's only good for the Undertaker. Peace, love, and understanding. Have we no room for them today? Well, no, there's got to be a better way. I said, what is it good for? Absolutely
Nothing.
Say it again. What is it good for? Absolutely
Nothing.
Well done, everybody. I think they warmed up a bit there, didn't they?
Viv, you're not going to come and join me now. This is the easy one.
Come on, Viv.
All right, I will.
Yay!
Hey, big round for Viv. Hooray!
Wrote me into this.
No. This is a first. This is a first. And Dimitri was maybe going to fiddle a little bit along with this. I'm in C, Dimitri. You still getting the guitar? Yeah. It's not quite as simple as war, but there's a mother, 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 and there's a father, father, and a brother, brother. If you know it, please sing along. Mother, mother. There's too many of you crying. Brother, 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 there's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Father, Father, we don't have to escalate. You know war is not the answer, 'cause only love can conquer hate. Yeah, you know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. And picket signs and picket lines, don't punish me with brutality. Come on and talk to me, and you can see, yeah, what's going on. I tell you what's going on. I tell you what's going on. We're going up to E flat. Whoa, right on. Marvelous part. Well, mother, mother, everybody says we're wrong. Oh, but who were they to judge us? 'Cause we simply sing our song. Yeah, we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. And picket signs and picket lines, don't punish me with brutality. Come on and talk to me, and you can see, yeah, what's going on. What's going on? I tell you what's going on. What's going on?
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you, that was absolutely fantastic.
We're just on our way out. There's one for you. You have to go C and D now. Oh, baby, Nuke's gotta go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I'm gonna exit stage left, right? You have to do it with me though. So it's C and D now. Whoa, baby, Nuke's gotta go. Yeah, 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 yeah. I said C and D now. Whoa, baby, Nuke's gotta go. I'm not seeing many mouths opening. Come on, this is your last chance. Maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4. C and D now. Whoa, baby, Nuke's gotta go. Yeah, 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 yeah. I said a C and D now. Whoa, baby, Nuke's gotta go.
Thanks so much, Rick. That was absolutely brilliant, and thanks to the musical accompaniment for those of you as well. That was absolutely amazing. Okay, okay, Carol, over to you for the next segment.
Thanks, Kate. More people are turning up. It's really great. We've got Ruth from Golders Green. Hi, Ruth. We've got a couple more people from Camden. We have Sam from Sheffield, although he's probably come from South London today, I'm guessing. Welcome, Sam. I'm going to introduce you now to someone you'll already have met if you've been to any of the Lakenheath protests. Jess has been with us on a couple of occasions, and originally Jess comes from Norwich, or was based in Norwich. Nowadays she's living nearby me, which is the Vauxhall constituency. We're just on the border of that. And Jess's claim to fame, or deserving of a groan, depending on your politics, Jess is a member of the Labour Party National Executive Committee. Here you go, Jess. You have to overcome that introduction.
Thank you. You're welcome to groan, it's okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for coming out, and it's really great to be here at such an important event, and great to see such a variety of performers. I really love the sing-along. But on a serious note, I can't think of a more urgent time for us to be resisting allowing the UK to be a pawn in the US war machine. And as bombs continue to rain down on Gaza, and we're witnessing the crime of genocide being committed against Palestinians, the UK and the US, who have continued to arm Israel, will forever be remembered for their complicity. And just yesterday, the US conceded its weapons may have been used to commit war crimes against the Palestinian people. And we have to say enough is enough. What more evidence do we need that the UK should not allow the US to put us on the nuclear front line? The words of the Labour leader, Keir Starmer, and his appalling track record on defending the rights of Palestinians do not represent Labour members or the kind of government that a Labour government should strive to be, and they do not represent the world we should aspire to be a part of. And like many Labour members, I'm also a proud member of CND, and while I was chair of Young Labour, at a time when it was desperately needed, we worked tirelessly to champion peace movements, anti-imperialism, and put peace at the heart of Labour Party politics again. And as a Norfolk girl, as Carol said, and proud, it's devastating to see our British government willing to allow US-controlled nukes in our backyard. And it should not be okay or normalised for children to grow up around huge US military operations and nuclear weapons. And it's not okay for the UK to march arm in arm with the US into conflict, endangering their own citizens. Now, Labour leader Keir Starmer has made it pretty clear he will not threaten the status quo on international politics or the military-industrial complex. But the Labour leadership is out of step with its base. More than 4/5 of Labour voters support a total nuclear ban. We have the overwhelming support of the public with us on this issue, but it is the lack of political will, the lack of ambition or understanding by our country's leaders, and that is why the peace movement, working together with the Labour movement, is so important to build pressure on a political class which is determined to bury its head in the sand. So we understand that international solidarity and nuclear disarmament have to go hand in hand. Acknowledging the history of nuclear weapons and their impacts on indigenous peoples and the continued impact it has had on the lives of citizens around the world, there is no justification for their continued use. So we don't just stand against nuclear weapons, we stand against the oppression of all people and our weapons being used to oppress people, to cause devastation across the globe, from Yemen to Palestine. Arms dealers and global powers will not be the ones that provide us with a path to peace, though. We have to build it. If we live in a vibrant democracy, why is it that war-hungry bureaucrats in Washington can decide to impose weapons of war and destruction on the doorstep of Suffolk and Norfolk? So the question for the incoming Labour government, but also for all parliamentarians who have not yet supported the call for nuclear disarmament, is this. Do you see Britain's future as one harping back to the days of arms races, of terror, of colonialism, of exploitation, and condemning all future generations to fear, to climate collapse and division? Or are you willing to challenge the consensus of an economy built on the arms industry, to put lives before profits, to build a new kind of international politics based on peace, on justice, on meaningful, sustainable jobs, and of course ensuring the future of our planet, to provide the leadership we desperately need, to oppose war in all its forms, and to stand with the oppressed against their oppressors. But I have to stress, we really cannot wait for Westminster or for Keir Starmer to wake up and discover a humanitarian conscience. And so far from Starmer, we've seen he's unwilling to provide that leadership. So it's up to us, people of good conscience, communities, to stand up against the machines of war, just as we have seen the hundreds of thousands of people turning out to march in solidarity with Palestine and to demand a ceasefire and an end to our government's complicity. So wherever there is an attempt for US to put their nukes on our soil, CND and peace activists will organise and oppose them. And where workers' movements are being complicit, where workers are being complicit in the use of arms being built on our soil, workers should follow in the footsteps of the solidarity of the South African anti-apartheid movement. From shop workers in Berlin to Ford workers and train drivers, we should again answer the call of international solidarity and refuse to be complicit in acts of war, and most crucially, genocide and apartheid. So let's be inspired once again to play our part in putting an end to the horrors being committed, and show Westminster that when they fail us, real leadership will come from the working classes and the peace activists, and from international solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. And I think that message about the majority, the silent majority, unfortunately, of Labour Party members is pretty well true from all our experiences. We've now got a very special contribution. Shago, please come forward. And this is from Shigeo Kobayashi, who is one of the organisers of Japan Against Nuclear. And Shigeo and his colleagues, even Moxie is welcoming you. Shigeo and his colleagues regularly, monthly, hold a protest at the Japanese embassy, reminding them of what nuclear weapons means and opposing nuclear power. Shigeo.
Thank you very much. 皆さんこんにちは。私は日本から来てエセックスに住んでいます。I live in Essex, but also come to Japanese embassy and typical office in London to protest about what nuclear power brings to human being. It's not only electrical power, but brings lot of waste which they don't know what to do. They'll end up contaminating seawater, air, and everything you eat will be affected by radioactive materials. Here I prepared not a very short message, but message. Greetings from Japanese Against Nuclear UK, which along with the Kick Nuclear had since 2012 been campaigning in solidarity with Japanese citizen groups. In the aftermath of the disaster at the Tokyo Electric Power Company, Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant on 11th March 2011, we currently hold monthly vigils outside Japanese embassy, Piccadilly, and the TEPCO International branch office in Holborn. For nearly 13 years, 160 tons of water have been poured daily into the 3 damaged Fukushima reactors to prevent further catastrophic meltdowns. This highly radioactive water is then removed, but storage has become difficult. Last year, the government approved the periodic discharge after further treatment of this water into the Pacific. Please read our 2024 bulletin for the political and economic consequences of this decision. I mention this to stress that we cannot arrogantly assume that there will be no more nuclear accidents. Nuclear power is currently neither green nor cheap. I am also here to give apologies from Reverend Nagase, resident monk at the London Peace Pagoda since the 80s, and the Sister Martha of Milton Keynes Peace Pagoda, both regulars at CND gatherings. They are in Japan at the moment for the anniversary of the building of the first Peace Pagoda built in 1954. They are members of the Nippon-zan Myohoji Buddhist order founded by Nichidatsu Fuji in the 30s. During the Pacific War, Nichidatsu Fuji traveled throughout Japan, risking imprisonment by preaching resistance against the war, chanting and drumming non-violent resistance to war, weaponry on protest and peace walks, buildings, peace pagodas across the world. Nichidatsu Fuji and his followers have stressed his message: if we fail to prevent nuclear war, one's desire for security is nothing but a dream. Nichidatsu Fuji lived 100 years. Throughout his mission, he was also persistent letter writer to those in power. I conclude with extract from a letter he wrote to the Director General of the Defense Agency on July 8, 1956, which is relevant to why we are outside the U.S. Embassy today. To Director General Funada Naka, the stated purpose of the Defense Agency is to protect the territory of Japan and the people from the ravages of war. The U.S. forces stationed in Japan, their initially based military bases are said to exist for precisely the same purpose. But the time has come to seek out alternatives for the sake of future peace and security. War is caused by the human heart and mind. Ultimately, any act of international war is a result of escalating mistrust, suspicion, and antagonism that is mutual and fueled by animosity and fear. The Japan-US Security Treaty, 1951, is without doubt a treaty what invites war. Article 1 states such forces, U.S. land, air, and sea forces, may be utilized to contribute to the security of Japan against armed attack from without, including assistance to put down large-scale internal riots and disturbance in Japan caused throughout instigation or intervention by an outside power or powers. With no large-scale internal riots, nor any attacks from without looming anytime soon, inviting the U.S. military to be stationed in Japan only heightened apprehension at home and abroad. the administrative agreement that governs said treaty allows the U.S. land, air, and sea forces to freely build countless bases. It provides for cost sharing between the two countries, undermining Japanese sovereignty. The sacred duty that accompanies your position requires you, at the very least, to convey the suffering of the Japanese people, to hold the tyranny and inordinate greed of the United States, and to be resolute in demanding the return of these bases. Modern states are groaning under increasing enormous burden of the arms race, leading many to propose disarmament conferences. Japan, on the contrary, caved in to U.S. pressure by covertly arming itself, adroitly sidestepped the confines of the peace constitution by creating the defense agency. Since then, the government has acted like a den of thieves, spending exorbitant sums of money and legitimizing the plunder of the Japanese people, all in the name of national defense. A true national defense that protects the land of Japan and the people while deterring internal riots and foreign invasion requires abolition of the defense agency. Your resignation from office is prerequisite. Signed by Nippon Daimyo Hoji Shaman Nichidatsu Fuji. Thank you for listening. Arigatou gozaimasu.
Thank you very much indeed, Shigeo, and thank you to Japanese Against Nuclear for all your work, particularly in highlighting the catastrophe of Fukushima. Now, in introducing our next speaker, I'm going to say that I imagine many of you will be familiar with his work and his writings. Roger Mackenzie, one of his hats is he is international editor of the Morning Star, a newspaper that really strongly supports CND's causes. So we welcome you, Roger, as an outstanding international writer and campaigner, but also most importantly, or more importantly, as a newly elected Vice President of CND. We're delighted to have you with us today. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you, Kate. I was actually going to add the last bit in if Kate hadn't mentioned it, so I'm glad you did. Look, I think we have to start any protest at the moment by recognising all the students across the world who are standing up and protesting right now. Not an easy thing to do, particularly the fact that they're being attacked for standing up for what's right. And I think we should send absolute solidarity from this protest today to those people who are facing attacks every day for just standing up for what's right. So let's do that now. But most of all, we have to send solidarity to the people of Gaza who are under threat every single day. Sun's shining here right now, but it's raining in Gaza. It's raining in the Sudan, it's raining on the Congo as well, it's raining in many parts of the world. Not the sort of rain that brings life, but the sort of rain that brings death. The sort of rain that is created by the rainmakers who live in the house behind me, hideous building behind me, frankly, and across the world, who just think all of a sudden that somehow it's okay to have not just a massive nuclear war, but they are seriously thinking that they can have tactical nuclear conflict, that they can have an isolated nuclear conflict, because somehow that isn't going to have an impact on anybody else other than those people who they murder. Now, I think that we have to be loud and clear to these people that we don't want to see the use of nuclear weapons anywhere, of any kind. And we certainly don't want nuclear weapons on this soil as well. Now, people will say, well, what's the point? You can't stop these people. They're oh so powerful. They'll just do what they want anyway. Comrades, we have beaten these people before. We have stopped these people from having nuclear weapons on these shores before, and we have to do it again. And let the message go out from this place today that if they do bring those nuclear weapons to these shores in the autumn, we will mount the protest that will mean they'll have to remove them. Earlier on, Victoria read from my favourite poet, June Jordan. And one of the things that June Jordan also said was that we are the ones that we've been waiting for. So we can't wait for politicians to do this stuff for us. We can't think that Keir Starmer, well, I don't think anybody here thinks Keir Starmer is going to do this for us. I don't think we can wait for some knight in shining armour to come to our rescue at the last minute and stop these nuclear weapons. As I've said, we did this before and we'll have to do it again. We are the ones that we've been waiting for, nobody else. We need to go out and we need to organise. We need to go out and we need to say to those people who don't want to come to demonstrations on a Saturday, who don't want to come to demonstrations any other time, but we need to go and engage with them in their workplaces, we need to engage with them in their communities, we need to go to where they are and talk with them about why nuclear weapons was wrong yesterday, it's wrong today, and it's wrong tomorrow, and it's up to us. Nobody is going to do this for us. Thank you very much, comrades, and good luck.
Thanks very much indeed, Roger. So you can all see why Roger is a Vice President of C&D. Thank you very much indeed. Our next speaker, where is she? Lindsay German.
She's coming.
Oh, there you are. Sorry. Okay. So I've been in the leadership of C&D for the past couple of decades. Throughout that time, it's always been a great source of strength and encouragement to me to know that Lindsay German has been in the leadership of the Stop the War Coalition, our partner on so many crucial issues. So it's a great pleasure to welcome Lindsay here today. Welcome.
Thanks very much, Kate, and it's good to see everybody here today. I think it's this is an issue which we have to raise the profile of, that we have a situation where when I was growing up, people were aware, because of what CND did, of the threat of nuclear war and of the threat of nuclear weapons. Again, in the 80s, we had tremendous campaigns which made people aware of the threat. And of course, what happens is, over a period of time, it all becomes supposedly normalised. We were supposed to have a peace dividend, which we never had. But now, they talk about nuclear war, tactical nuclear war, but even full-scale nuclear war, as though it's just something a bit more extreme than the ordinary wars that are going on. And I think we need to get across, firstly, how severe this threat is and how much our government and the United States and various other governments are escalating the threat of war and escalating the threat of nuclear war. You know, when you think what they're trying to do at Lakenheath, and they're trying to do it at the bases around Europe, they're trying to bring back nuclear weapons which we got rid of in 2008. And that was a great victory for the movement. The movement had a whole number of successes, including the closing of Greenham Common, including all those things. And we need to remember those victories, but we shouldn't let them try to bring these things in by stealth. behind the back door, and that is what they're trying to do. If you look at what is happening today, and Roger referred to it, we have the most dangerous world that any of us can remember. We have a war in Ukraine. We have the hideous genocidal slaughter of the people of Gaza. We have wars in many other places as well. I'm speaking later on at a demonstration about Sudan and against what is happening, a terrible humanitarian disaster which is happening in Sudan, and which our government, of course, as usual, with all its allies, is complicit in making sure this happens. So we need to say these wars are making it much more dangerous, and we also have an arms race. The amount of world spending on arms has doubled since the beginning of the 21st century. Now that means you are talking about the much greater likelihood of wars wherever you look. And we know there is the militarization in the Pacific, in the Far East. We know there is constant pressure from our government and from other governments to send more weapons to Ukraine. And when you look at the arguments about nuclear weapons and why they need nuclear weapons, what do they say? They say it's to defend Europe against Russia. Now, what this means is they are involved, NATO is involved in a proxy war in Ukraine with Russia, and they are trying to escalate this war as much as they can. This war is horrific, by the way, with huge numbers of casualties. The Ukrainians have just announced this week they are recruiting prisoners to fight on the front lines because they are so short of troops, something the Russians have already been doing. Many, many people are dying as a result of this. Many, many people are being injured in the most serious way, and there is no solution to this war except some sort of ceasefire and some sort of peace deal with the Russians. But every time, from Boris Johnson onwards, they have refused to go down this road. And they are therefore preparing Europe for a much, much bigger war, a war that our parents and grandparents fought in 75 years ago, and which we do not want to see a return to, and we do not want to see a return to how that war ended, which was the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which marked the beginning of American imperialism dominance across the world. So these are very, very important questions for us. It's also important we talk about what is going on with arms spending in this country, because this, and in America, because this is part of the same story. They are saying in Britain, and this is Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer, and as a number of speakers have said, Keir Starmer is an absolute disgrace over these questions. He wraps himself in the Union Jack. He talks about the defence industry all the time. He's scapegoating refugees in the most appalling manner. And he is the person who's saying that he wants GDP, 2.5% of GDP, to be spent on weapons. We already spend one of the biggest amounts in Europe, but he wants even more to be gone. Some of his own supporters want it to go to 3% of GDP, which would be an astonishing figure, given Britain is not involved in a war and is not threatened by Russia. So these questions I think we need to raise all the time, because they are determined on war. But whether it's Biden or Trump in the White House after November, both of them are escalating wars. And I listened very, very carefully to the Japanese comrade who spoke. I noticed that the Prime Minister of Japan went to Washington last week, and what did he say? He said we have to make sure that Russia never uses nuclear weapons again. Now, that again is kind of loaded, isn't it? This is the Japanese Prime Minister. The only country that has used nuclear weapons is the United States of America, and actually Russia has never used nuclear weapons. But the fact that they can rewrite history like this, because Japan is going to be, by 2030, Japan will be the third biggest military spender in the world after the US and China. The fact they can rewrite history about the Second World War, about what goes on now, is something that we have to confront every single way that we can. And therefore, let's think about the ways that we can do that. And Roger spoke very powerfully about the Palestine protests. I know for all of us, those Palestine protests are foremost in our minds as we see what is happening today with Rafah, as we see the starvation that people in Gaza are facing, the bombardment, all the other things that they are facing. let's make sure that in the Palestine movement we bring in these arguments. They're not separate arguments. The role of colonialism applies to Sudan, it applies to the Congo, it applies everywhere they're talking about, because we still have an imperialist system. When you look at what is happening in Gaza, the war will not just be contained in Gaza, it will already spread, it's already spreading in the Middle East, and it will spread further, and we know that Israel is a nuclear power and will not hesitate to use nuclear weapons if it has to. So these are issues we have to bring together as a peace movement, as an anti-war movement. I'm very, very pleased that we have had this long alliance with CND and that we've played a very, very big role, both of us, I think, in the Palestine movement. That will continue, but it isn't just about Palestine. So solidarity with Palestine, solidarity to all the students, but let's make sure they know nuclear power is not good. Nuclear weapons are not good. We have to oppose these, and if we don't oppose them, we will see further wars, and that is something that is an absolutely terrifying prospect. Can I just end with one thing? Jess talked about East Anglia and the threat in East Anglia, and there are so many air bases in East Anglia historically from the Second World War and the present ones that go on. One of my mum actually came from East Anglia, and her sister phoned her during the Cuban Missile Crisis and said, you've got to get the girls and you've got to hitch a ride on a lorry because there's going to be another war. And that was just 20 years after people had lived through, as my family did, live through the war in London. We cannot have people frightened like that again. We cannot have the situation that we have in Sudan, that we have in Gaza. We have to fight for a world of peace and justice and equality. And that means fighting our government and our rulers and getting rid of the weapons industry and getting rid of the arms spending and getting rid of nuclear weapons once and for all. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, Lindsay. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lindsay. Great as ever. We're moving into the last part of our protest. And I just want to make a quick announcement about the end. I've already told you that Strawberry Fields will be singing as the final performance. But after that, we're actually going to be having a group photograph of the banners. I've seen a couple of people starting to furl them away. Don't do that yet. Please keep your banners. Tom from Milton Keynes, unroll that banner of yours. So we're now going to have a couple more performances. We're going to hear first from Hugh Goodacre from Hampstead, and a CND supporter and an active trade unionist. He tells me he always sings out his local trade union branch. And he's going to give us a song, and I think he's pushed someone into circulating the words, which he's going to ask you to join in with in a while.
Two songs, one about the power of Labour.
They won't be able, just the announcement.
So this is a song on the 40th anniversary of the miners' strike. Come all of you good people, you women and you men, once more our backs are to the wall, we're being attacked again. You can join in with the chorus if you like, it's only got 4 words. 5 words. Which side are you on? 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 We fought 1,000,000 battles to win our hard-won rights, and now we have to fight again, so I ask you here tonight. Which side are you on? 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 Thatcher sent McGregor to smash the NUM and break the workers' unity, so I ask you once again. Which side are you on? 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 Our rulers rant and tear their hair and shout democracy, but the kind they've got in mind is not for you and me. Which side are you on?
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? But all their ranting about ballots, it's pure hypocrisy. If they cared so much about ballots, what about the GLC? Which side are you on? 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 My bully boys in uniform and thugs with riot shields. Our comrades' blood is being shed, but still they will not yield. Which side are you on? 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 So don't scab to the bosses, don't listen to their lies. The workers haven't got a chance unless they organise. Which side are you on? 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 It's time for a decision. You've really got to choose. Support the miners' struggle, or the next in line is you. I wasn't expecting so many people. I brought a few sheets of the words of the next song. It's the Old Marston March. Many of you will know it, and you'll pick up the chorus anyway, I guess, even if you can't follow all the words. The H-bombs thunder, echoing live, while they rend your skies asunder, fallout makes the earth a tomb. You want your homes to tumble, cries and smoke towards the sky. Will you see your cities crumble? Will you let your children die? Men and women stand together. Do not heed the men of war. Make your minds up now or never. Man the bomb forevermore. Tell the rulers of the nations that the whole wide world take heed. Poison from the radiations strikes in every race and creed. You put mankind in danger, for the folk in foreign hands. Will you bring death to a stranger? Have his blood upon your hands. Men and women stand together. Do not heed the men of war. Make your minds up now or never. Ban the bomb forevermore. Shall we lay the world in ruin? Only you can make the choice. Stop and think what you are doing. Join your march and raise your voice. Time is short, we must be speedy. We can see the hungry feeling. How's the homeless helping easy? Shall we trust or shall we kill? Men and women stand together. Do not heed the men of war. Make your minds up now or never. Ban the bomb forevermore.
Thanks very much indeed, Hugh. That was great. And now you mentioned in your introduction about the importance of the trade union movement. So it's a great pleasure to welcome our next speaker, who will be known to many of you, Samantha Mason. She's from the PCS union, which has excellent policies on many of our issues, but also Sam is not only a vice chair of C&D nationally, she's also very active in our trade union advisory group and is a champion of defence diversification and other key issues like that. So if any of you are active in your trade unions and you're not already in touch with our trade union advisory group, please do come up and speak to Sam after this event. So big welcome, Sam. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate, and yeah, it's
quite humbling actually to follow so many great speeches already, so I'll try not to repeat too much of what's been said. But solidarity first and foremost from PCS Trade Union for the demonstrations today, and of course for all the actions around Palestine and Gaza, and remembering what is happening there and the protests across the world. Now, I'm just going to talk a little bit about why trade unions should be opposing the return of US nukes to Lakenheath, and I think it's come out in a number of the speeches already. First and foremost, because as trade unionists, we're internationalists. We are built around and rooted in solidarity with the working class across the world, not just in the UK. Secondly, because we are also rooted in peace, and our action should always be about peace. And thirdly, while we celebrate and commemorate past struggles, as we do as part of the fight for justice for past, current and future generations, that's why we need to remember what has happened before, and why nuclear weapons, as has already clearly been mentioned around Nagasaki and Hiroshima, are only about destruction and killing people and nothing else. And so therefore nuclear weapons have absolutely no place in this for the trade union movement, and we should not be supporting them. The return of US nuclear weapons to Lakenheath is also indicative, as many have also said, about the increasingly insecure and unstable world that we live in. Of course, this is linked to, as Lindsay German has clearly pointed out, an increase in military spending, which is sadly supported by the trade union movement, and many of you will remember in 2022 where the TUC overturned a very good motion that we'd won on defence diversification, and that included with the backing of those unions that have got members in the defence sector. But what are these jobs that these unions are fighting for in the defence sector? A few weeks ago, Grant Shapps said that they could cut 70,000 civil servants to help pay for increase in defence spending. Are these the jobs that we're saying should go so we can spend more on defence contracts and defence manufacturing? But we know, even if they did do that, and I'm sure they fully intend to do that, whether it's about defence spending or not, this is a drop in the ocean for the huge and vast sums of money that they want to invest in defence. So of course, this is about robbing Peter to pay Paul. We shouldn't be fighting with each other in the trade union movement about some jobs here or some jobs there. We should be fighting for the jobs that bring about a secure and stable world, and for socially and ecologically sustainable jobs. Jobs that put back and increase our public services and invest in tackling climate change, both in terms of the adaptation measures that we need and also mitigation. Today is a very hot day. Roger has talked about the rain coming down on parts of Africa. I know he obviously meant the bombs and destruction, but there are vast swathes of East Africa at the moment suffering the most horrendous flooding. And those are thousands of people there that are losing their lives, their livelihoods, and being displaced right across that region. Nuclear weapons will do nothing to save those people and from the destruction that is coming ahead due to climate change. And we've heard this week from scientists who are in absolute despair that we are not listening to the science, and we are fast on track to the very catastrophic climate future that has long been predicted. We are now starting to live through that. So therefore, I think, as others said, whether it's nukes at Lakenheath or obviously the Trident weapons system as well, but also whether it's nuclear power, there is no atom for peace, as many have argued for. We have to continue to make the link between nuclear weapons and nuclear power. The government's roadmap for nuclear power very clearly states that they are investing in civilian nuclear to fund and invest in the defence part of it as well. We are underwriting it. Those jobs that unions are fighting for in nuclear power are underwriting nuclear weapons, and we shouldn't be supporting those either. And to come back to obviously Lakenheath and where it's located in Suffolk, you've got Sizewell B. They've just approved the licence for Sizewell C to go ahead on the coast, a coast which is a threat itself to climate change and sea rises and coastal erosion. So on one side you've got the potential for nuclear weapons, and on the other side you've got a nuclear power plant that's under threat to climate change. And I said before, we were a couple of years ago at Lakenheath, I have a niece who's a nurse working in Ipswich General Hospital. That actually fills me with tremendous fear about what her job may have to be in responding to any catastrophes at either of those places at all. So I think, as Kate has mentioned, we have a trade union group within the CND. If you are a trade unionist here, please do get involved with it. I think Stop the War has done a brilliant job in pulling together trade unionists and having regular meetings and conferences now for trade union activists within the Stop the War movement. We need to be doing the same in CND. So please, we are hoping that we will be bringing together a meeting at some point over the summer, but please do get involved in your union. If your union has got policy, make sure it's not like a lot of union policy is just sitting there on a shelf doing nothing. Make sure you're aware of it, you're raising it in branches, and you're bringing it up through the structures to the bureaucracy as well, to ensure that unions are out supporting days of action like this and in the future. So I think, as has been made clear, the only thing we've got is ourselves. There is nobody coming to save us. Roger, who's also part of War on Want as well, and we were part of a conference that War on Want held a little while ago on Still We Rise, and that was closed off by Naomi Klein in a very powerful speech where she was asked to talk about hope and what we can do, and she was quite frank and said, well, to be honest, it's very hard to find hope, which I think we all kind of feel like that at times, but obviously coming together like this gives us hope. It gives us hope in the power of each other to collectivise, and that is what the labour movement about, that is what the trade union movement about, and we must get out there and have our trade union banners and make sure we raise the profile of this within our trade union movement to say no to nukes, US nukes, whether the Trident nuclear programme, no to nuclear power, and get out there and fight for peace. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sam. And if people want to know more about the relationship between war and climate, on Monday there is a webinar which Sam has organised and is speaking at with others. You'll find details of that on the CND website. So there's still time to sign on board and come along. I'm now going to call on Paul from Kent to sing for us. Can I just remind you that after Strawberry Thieves sing for us, we need all of your help to raise the banners and get a photograph. We want to see our banners clearly lined up in front of the US Embassy, telling them what they think. Paul, over to you.
I'll do this as loudly as I can. This is a Paul Metzer song that he never recorded or released, and I do it for the people behind us. Every time you start a war, you think you might get more. It's not long before you forget what for, and there's no returning through that one-way door. It's the young ones who pay. It's the young ones who pay. It's the young ones who pay. At the end of the day, it's the young ones who pay. might be you, it might be the other guy. You're a long way past the reason why. And if you have to, well, you're prepared to die, but it's the young ones who pay. And come the time when all is said and done, you realise that no one's really won. And you're right back there where it was first begun. And it's the young ones who pay. Well, the cameras show the rubble of the aftermath, trying hard to avoid the real bloodbath. But the hollow eyes of children on the broken path are the young ones who pay. Are the young ones who pay. Are the young ones who pay. At the end of the day, it's the young ones who pay. It's the young ones who pay. The young ones who pay. At the end of the day, it's the young ones who
Thank you so much. That was actually really greetings to all our friends in Kent area C&D. Okay, so as Carol said, in just a moment we're going to have the finale with Strawberry Thieves Socialist Choir, then we're going to have the photo op. We're going to be assembled here, so I'm sure if you could all make your way over there after the singing with your banners and placards. Podrick will be coordinating your positioning to get the best kind of photo. Podrick is our press officer if you don't already know him. So thank you everyone for coming today. I think it's been a really powerful event. Can I just say that this week I have been to the launch meetings of 2 new and revived CND groups. So Manchester Central and Cambridge and District CND. So that's a really great addition to the CND family, and it's an indication of how people are being re-energised and refocused by all the terrible things going on in the world. But the great thing is it is motivating people and inspiring people to take action themselves. And as Roger said earlier on in his speech, it's not that we have to be waiting for someone else to come along or some other initiative to come along. We put our power and our energy into building CND, building the peace movement, working in alliance with all our partner organisations and making our movement as strong as it can be. And in the past, as we know, we have prevailed and we will do so again. So now, over to Strawberry Thieves. Hooray!
We're a socialist choir based in southeast London, and we'd be very happy if more of you wanted to join us after you've heard us sing. You might not want to once you've heard us sing. The first song we're going to sing is by Sue Gil-Murray, who I haven't seen here today, a wonderful peace activist who wrote it a lot. Yeah, come closer.
They're asking you to go closer, so if everyone could gather round the Strawberry Thieves.
Sue Gil-Murray, a great
great.
singer-songwriter from Cambridge, and we're going to sing her song War Machine first.
In dozen skies
As the great hawks fly over bloody towns where children die, and the instruments of tyranny were bought from Britain PLC as the war machine rolls round. And the war machine rolls round and round, and the poor and the weak get trampled on the ground. And from where we stand, their cries are drowned by the clink of the franc and the dollar and the pound as the war machine rolls round. And the prisoner sleeping where he fell will awake to one more day of hell. From the US baton's searing pain, his body bound by a Sheffield chain as the war machine rolls round. And the war machine rolls round and round, and the poor and the weak get trampled on the ground. And from where we stand, their cries are drowned by the clink of the franc and the dollar and the pound as the war machine rolls round. With an industry that lives and thrives, making tools to shatter human lives, and our honest workers ply their skill, helping distant tyrants maim and kill as the war machine rolls round. And the war machine rolls round and round, and the poor and the weak get trampled on the ground. And from where we stand, their cries are drowned by the clink of the franc and the dollar and the pound as the war machine rolls round. It is time, my friends, for us to say we will not sell debt to earn our pay. It is time for our exports to cease, for the world can never live in peace while the war machine rolls round. And the war machine rolls round and round, and the poor and the weak get trampled on the ground. And from where we stand, their cries are drowned by the clink of the franc and the dollar and the pound as the war machine rolls round. Thank you.
We're going to sing a song called War Crimes. I actually wrote it in 2006, but it seems to be very relevant now. I read a book by John Pilger. He explains that a war crime for the purposes of the Nuremberg trial was defined as something that the other side had done and our side had not done. This was to avoid Allied commanders or politicians being accused of war crimes. And it's prompted me to write the song.
War crime, war crime.
Is it a
war crime
to kill 6 million Jews?
Yes, to carpet bomb a German town or raise Hiroshima to the ground. War crime,
That's not a
war crime. For history and justice are made by those in power. War crime, war crime.
Is it a
War crime to spray Agent Orange over the trees, causing birth deformities. War crime,
That's not a
war crime. So Kissinger and Nixon were never put on trial. War crime,
Iraqi
war crime.
Is it a
War crime.
to gas 1,000 cans?
Yes, with mustard gas from USA. Saddam's friends looked the other way, then changed their minds, destroyed Iraq. Saddam's been trying, but they have not. War crime,
It wasn't a
war crime, till Pax America behave like gangsters all the time, abducting civilians, bulldozing homes, shooting children for throwing stones, diverting water, ruining crops. Will these war crimes ever stop? Yes, but not while Israel exists as a state made for the chosen few, where lives of Palestinian folk are worth much less than lives of Jews. Peaceful coexistence is not possible with a country governed by war criminals, encouraged and financed by the United States. We need to bring to justice all who perpetrate war crimes. War crimes, unless we take a stand and put these criminals on trial.
Thanks very much indeed to Strawberry Thieves. That's one more? Okay, don't go away anybody. I see some sloping off. Don't go, we need the photo. Just one more song from Strawberry Thieves.
Stop the war, march on, stop the war, for Palestinians, stop the war, march on, stop the war, for Palestine, stop the war, march on, stop the war, for Palestinians, stop the war, march on, stop the war, for Palestine. And we'll never stop the marching until Israel stops the bombing. And we'll march on if we need to until Israel agrees to stop the war. March on, stop the war. For Palestinians, stop the war. March on, stop the war. For Palestine, stop the war. March on, stop the war, for Palestinians, stop the war. March on, stop the war, for Palestine. And we'll never stop the marching until Israel stops the bombing. And we'll march on if we need to until Israel agrees to stop the war.
Brilliant. Thanks very much indeed to Strawberry Thieves, the Socialist Choir. Brilliant. Thank you for joining us today. And now if you could come over to this side where you see the LAC&D banner, bring yourselves and your own banners. Lewisham and Greenwich.